Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. Today is Wednesday, the 17th of June. Oh, Jesus. Okay. 3:12. We're going to start off with a sound saying from First Thessalonians 5:24. Faithful is he that calleth you, who also will do it. Faithful is he that calleth you, who also will do it. Okay? The back is coming from 1 Samuel 2, verse 9, and it says, He will keep the feet of his saints. He will keep the feet of his saints, which means that your feet will not slide and slumber all over the place. He will keep you grounded, okay? He will keep you from falling, okay, stumbling, okay? He will keep the feet of his saints, and he literally means that. He controls your footsteps. He controls your goings, your coming, so therefore he also controls the stability of your feet. Okay, today we are going to be reading from Psalms. I haven't really read a lot of Psalms this year. And this one is a fairly long psalm. We will not complete it all in one session. It is a 72 verse psalm. Okay, so I like to break this up into maybe 2 days. I really don't like to rush through the psalms. It's never good to rush through any reading because it doesn't do the listener any good for you to rush through a reading. I've noticed that people like to use their own words when they speak to you, and that's fine if they're explaining something to you. But I noticed that when they read the scripture, they speed read the scripture, which is not good. Because our words, just our words coming out of our mouth, even if we're explaining a situation from the manual, we tend to take our time with our own words. But when it comes to these holy words here, we tend to breeze through these holy words as if they're not significant. They're more significant than my own words to you. And this is why I take the time to read it to you in the old school way. And I read it to you in the new international way, because a lot of times people don't understand this old school reading. And the new international version gives them a better understanding of that which you just read to them. Okay? I admire an individual that uses more of these words and less of his own. Okay? So we're reading from Psalm 78 today. And what is Psalm 78 talking about? It's talking about God's mercifully guides his stubborn people. He mercifully guides us. His stubborn and rebellious people, he mercifully guides us. He did that with Moses and the Israelites that walked out of Egypt. Not too long after walking out of Egypt, they got into the wilderness, and they just became a stubborn, rebellious, 600,000 strong people. And at one time, They even attempted to harm Moses. If they weren't attempting to harm Moses, they were speaking about returning back to Egypt. Their rebelliousness was just overwhelming to deal with. And if you read your scripture, you will discover or find that there were several times that God will come to Moses and say, "Let me give you a whole new crew." He said this to Moses several times. And Moses was always too concerned about what the Egyptians would think. He was just overly concerned about these rebellious people. When it would have been better for him had he took God's offer and give God the people. He would at least made it to the promised land himself. But when you go around always speaking for the wicked, you end up paying a terrible price for that. A terrible price. When you go around always fulfilling their wicked demands, intentions, you create an environment that becomes more and more unhealthy for the new generation. This is the thing about evil, brothers and sisters. When you allow a little bit of evil to fester, that little bit of evil grows and grows and grows and grows and grows and grows and grows, and then it begins to outnumber the good of the land. This is what happened in Sodom and Gomorrah. Evil grew there so rapidly that even God had to do something drastic. And in the same way it grew in Gomorrah and Sodom, it is growing in this country rapidly. You cannot put anything before God. I'm going to get to the reading. You cannot put anything before God. Not your race, not your ethnicity, not your position. Nothing goes before God. If you start putting things before God, and then you take God and move him out of the way, so you can allow all these monstrosities to grow in this earth, it creates this type of environment that we are in now. It didn't happen overnight. And it didn't start with the death of Floyd. It started way back when. How far back? Let me take you back to the separation of church and state. That's when these problems started. In the separation of church and state, there was a reason why church and state had to be entwined together. For the purpose of weeding out those wicked, evil deeds that could fester upon our land. But when you separate God from the government, you open up the door for Satan and all his clan to come in and make all kinds of demands. This is why you have same-sex marriages now. This is why you have people changing their genders now. This is why you have parents teaching their 12-year-olds that if they want to be a girl, you can be a girl. They're not even waiting till they're 12 anymore. Gay folks are able to get children now. They take these 9-year-old boys, put a dress on them, and send them to school. This is not just new. This has been happening for a while now. Okay? This is not something that just occurred with Floyd. There's a reason why we need God in every facet of our lives. It keeps us within the boundaries of His grace. This is why it's not good to muzzle the church. Because the church has a job. The church is important to Jesus. But to this world today, the church is not significant. But these words will always be significant, brothers and sisters. And if you don't believe that which we allow to take place on the earth this is not our earth. We didn't make it. It belongs to God. We are temporary pilgrims here. We are not supposed to be here destroying this world that was given unto us long ago. But that's exactly what we are doing. We are destroying it. In every facet. We are destroying our young generations. You have little girls and little boys that think that they are something different than what they really are. And instead of you correcting them, encouraging them, you lead them to the slaughter. You get on Facebook, on the news, and brag about how proud you are that you allowed your 12-year-old to be a girl. That's a monstrosity. This going on in this world. And it's not going to get any better. It's going to get a whole lot worse. So brace yourself. Why? Because this is what happens when you remove God out of our element. Let's begin. This is a 72 chapter verse. And we're not going to do all 72 today. We're going to split this thing in half. And we'll do it in about 2 days. So we'll stop at 34 today. Okay? In those 34 verses, we are reading a lot of witnessing, which is pink, and black for sin. And as we move along in the verse, we get some more colors here. We got green for love, orange for your faith, brown for Satan. Got some history here, gray for history. A lot of black in this second reading. And the last few verses are quite delightful. They're rare for discipleship. Okay, let's begin. And as usual, we have our companion New International Version at our disposal. So let's begin. It says, God mercifully guides His stubborn and rebellious people. Masul of Asaph. This was the person who this was made for. Give ear, all my people. This is pink for witnessing. Give ear. Pay attention. That's what give ear means. Pay attention. Give ear, all my people, to my law. It doesn't say give ear, all my people, to your laws. It says to my laws. You know, the ones that we don't want in the classrooms. You know, the ones that we don't want in our courthouses. You know, the 10 Commandments and all of Leviticus. We don't want to hear about that. Those are his laws, his ordinances, and his sanctions. Okay? Give ear, all my people, to my law. Incline your ear to the words of my mouth. Verse 2. I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark sayings of old. Verse 3. I will read this straight away because verse 1 to 7 is all pink for witnessing. Okay? Every now and then my spirit would lead me to give you what is pink for witnessing. Okay, what does that include? Pink for witnessing. It includes teaching, counseling, okay? Questionings, instruction. Teaching, counseling, questioning, instructions. All of that is included in pink. I'm not finished yet. It also includes testimonies, ministry, preaching, evangelism, gospel, doctrine, and sayings. Okay. Nothing in this here is false. Let me make a correction. Everything God says is true. Man is the liar. Everything God says is true. Man is the liar. And right now, the lies that man has created leads to this destruction that is going on now. Let's continue. 3. Which we have heard and known, and our fathers have told us. 4. We will not hide them from their children, showing to the generations to come the praises of the Lord and his strength and his wondrous works that he has done. We don't teach our children these things. We don't sit down and talk to our children about the Bible. I mean, you might go to church one day a week on a Sunday. That's not enough feeding. You got to feed between Sunday and the next Sunday. So grab your Bible and read with your children, so that they will know what is true and good and wholesome in the eyes of God. Because right now, the only thing they're concerned about is what man says about their conduct. Forget God. We have government and the Supreme Court and our Constitution of America for that. 4. We will not hide them from their children, showing to the generations to come the praises of the Lord and his strength and his wonderful, wonderful works that he has done. Okay, just look at the earth and how wonderful it is. He is a wonderful God, a creative God indeed. Such a creator that even the scientists cannot comprehend how this and that can exist. But they will try and replicate things. 5. For he established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers that they should make them known to their children, 6, that the generations to come might know them, even the children which shall be born, who shall arise and declare them to their children. 7, that they might set their hope in God and not forget the works of God, but keep his commandments. And when I mention this to several people, they don't want to hear it. If you try to talk to people about what's going on, and you try to bring God into the picture first, they don't want to hear it. They won't receive you. So let them go. They will soon find out. Let's read it from here. Because somebody's got to be wrong and somebody's got to be right. And the person that is right is God. Period. Because man has an evil nature. Evil. O my people, hear my teachings. Listen to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in parables. I will utter hidden things, things from the old. What we have heard and known, what our fathers have told us. For we will not hide them from their children. We will tell the next generation the praiseworthy deeds of the Lord, his power and the wonders he has done. 5. He decrees statutes for Jacob and established the law in Israel, which he commanded our forefathers to teach their children. 6. So the next generation will know them, even the children yet to be born, and they in turn will tell their children. 7. Then they will put their trust in God and would not forget his deeds, but would keep his commandment. It is a wonderful thing to have a fear of God. When you take away the fear of God, anything goes. It is a good thing to be afraid of what will happen if we do this, that, or the other. But because those things do not happen right away, we think that we are right. But you forget that 1,000 years is just a day for God. One day. 1,000 earthly years is one day for him. So he gives us more than enough time to get our act together. Continue. 8 to 11 is black for sin. And might not be as their fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation, a generation that set not their hearts aright, and whose spirit are not steadfast with God. 9. The children of Ephraim, being armed and carrying bows, turned back in the day of the battle. 10. They kept not the covenant of God, and refused to walk in his law. 11. And forgot his works and his wonders that he has shown them. Now this generation has seen these wonders. And so has this generation. But instead of giving God the glory, they give it to man. Perfect example. When that plane landed in the Hudson River a couple years ago, who got all the glory for that? The pilot did. God didn't get a bit of that at all. It was all the pilot. Okay. Let's continue. 8 to 11. They would not be like their forefathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation whose hearts were not loyal to God, whose spirits were not faithful to him, and we are not no more. We're like a dying breed. Did you hear me? We are a dying breed. And I tell you today, and you can say you heard it from spiritual water. My Father knows exactly what he's doing. My God knows exactly what he's doing. He is waiting until he gets the last stretch of his saints and servants in his companionship, and then he will deal with this world. Is that a good thing? No. Because I leave behind children and grandchildren and great-grands in this world. Do I wish for them to see the full wrath of God? Absolutely not. They won't be able to handle it. I do wish that when that day comes, that the only souls my God gathers are the wicked ones. That he may always leave a remnant behind. And I'm telling you now, among those remnants, there will not be any gays. There will not be any lesbian, transvestite, any of them. Because that which he leaves behind will be those that will repopulate this earth. Those that trust and love God, those that he spare and preserve, will be the ones that he will spare. So go ahead and have your fun. Okay, 8. They will not be like their fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation whose hearts were not loyal to God, whose spirit were not faithful to God. 9. The men of Ephraim, though armed with bows, turned back on the day of battle. 10. They did not keep God's covenant and refused to live by his law. 11. They forgot what he had done, the wonders he had shown them. Okay, we're on 12, which is 12, pink here. 12 to 16 is pink. Marvelous things did he in the sight of their fathers in the land of Egypt, in the field of Zoan. 13. He divided the sea and caused them to walk through, and he made the waters to stand as a heap. Can you just imagine this? Can you imagine that? Imagine the Pacific Ocean. If he can do it to the Red Sea, he can do it to the Pacific Ocean. Imagine if we had to cross the Pacific Ocean and the Lord opened up a road in the midst of the Pacific Ocean. There's an aquarium on both sides of you. You can even put your finger in the water. That's the God this generation is playing with. That's the God you choose not to be afraid of. Okay. 12, I'll read it again. Marvelous things did he in the sight of their fathers, in the land of Egypt, in the field of Zoan. 13, he divided the sea and caused them to pass through, and he made the waters to stand as a heap. 14, in the daytime, man can't even do that without equipment. In the daytime also he led them with a cloud, and all the night with a light of fire. 15, he clove the rocks in the wilderness and gave them drink as out of the great depths. 16, he brought streams also out of the rocks and caused waters to run down the rivers. This is the same God. 13, 12 to 16. He did marvelous miracles in the sight of their fathers in the land of Egypt, in the region of Zoan. 13, he divided the sea and led them through. He made the water stand firm like a wall. 14, he guided them with the cloud by day and with the light from the fire all night. 15, He split the rocks in the desert and gave them water as abundant as the sea. He brought a stream out of a rocky crag and made water flow like the rivers. Okay, this is the things this marvelous God can do. So imagine what he can do if he gets really angry. Imagine that. All right, 17 to 22. Black. And they sinned yet more against him by provoking the Most High in the wilderness. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. 18. And they tempted God in their hearts by asking meat for their lust. 19. Yea, they spake against God. They said, can God furnish a table in the wilderness? 20. Behold, he smote the rock, that the water gushed out and the stream overflowed. Can he give bread also? Can he provide flesh for his people? 21. Therefore the Lord heard this and was wroth. So a fire was kindled against Jacob, and anger also came against Israel. 22. Because they believed not in God and trusted not in their salvation, in his salvation. So this generation here is worse than this generation we're reading about. Worse. Because in this generation, we didn't have modern technology. With modern technology, the wickedness just went up. As soon as 1930, John Hopkins was doing the first sex change, while people were in the street fighting for equal rights. That's how long we've been swimming in our wickedness. All right, let's go. 17 to 22. But they continued to sin against him, rebelling in the desert against the Most High. 18. They willfully put God to the test by demanding the food they craved. 19. They spoke against God, saying, can God spread a table in the desert? 20. When he struck the rock, water gushed out and streams flowed abundantly. But can he also give us food? Can he supply meat for his people? 21. When the Lord heard them, he was very angry. His fire broke out against Jacob, and his wrath rose against Israel. 22. For they did not believe in God, nor trusted in his deliverance. 23 to 29 is pink for witnessing. Though he had commanded the clouds from above and opened the doors of heaven, though he had done all this, and had rained down manna upon them to eat, and had given them of the corn of heaven, done that too. Man did eat angels' food. He sent them meat to the full. 26. He caused an east wind to blow in the heavens, and by his power he brought in the south wind. 27. He rained flesh also upon them as dust, and feather fowls like as the sand of the sea. That means that there was just as much fowls on that ground as there was sand. He gave it to them in abundance, whether it was water, whether it was manna, whether it was fowls. Still, they weren't happy. Still, they didn't trust and believe in him. What more could he have done? 27, I'll repeat, he rained flesh upon them as dust, and feather fowls as the sand of the sea. 28, and he let it fall in the midst of their camp, round about their habitation. 29, so they did eat and were well filled, and he gave them their own desires. 23 to 29. Yet he gave a command to the skies above and opened the doors of the heavens. 24, he rained down manna for the people to eat. He gave them the grain of heaven. 25, men ate the bread of angels. He sent them all the food they could eat. 26, he led loose the east wind from the heavens and let forth the south wind by his power. 27, he rained meat down on them like dust, the flying birds like sand on the seashore. 28, he made them come down inside their camp, all around their tents. 29, they ate till they had more than enough, for he had given them what they craved. Okay, 30 to 33. We will stop at that. It's black for sin. I know I said 34, but that's a different color. 30. They were not entangled from their lust, but while their meat was yet in their belly. I'm so glad to hear this part. And yes, I am. Yes, I am. Every time I read the journey from Egypt through the wilderness, an 11-day journey. Mind you, brothers and sisters, this was an 11-day journey that took 40 years. Not for any other reason than their stubbornness. And that's the same thing we're dealing with today. A stubborn, rebellious, godless generation. They were not estranged from their lust, but while their meat was yet in their mouth. 31. The wrath of God came upon them and slew the fattest of them and smote down the chosen men of Israel. Now that means that he done chopped down the number of men on the camp that day. The fattest one he started with. Okay. In essence, not all of them made it to the promised land, including Moses, which is the one that upset me the most. The wrath of God came upon them and slew the fattest of them and smote down the chosen men of Israel. 32, for all this they sinned still and believed not for his wondrous work, even after he had done that. Okay, 31, therefore their days did he consume in vanity and their years in trouble. See, this is where we are. Year of trouble. This is the year of trouble. And if you think 2021 is going to be any better, oh no, it's not. Believe me, it is not going to get any better. Okay, 30 to 33. But before they turned from the food they craved, even while it was still in their mouth, God's anger rose against them. He put to death the sturdiest among them, cutting down the young men of Israel. That's what I just said. He eliminated many men that day. Moses did 3,000 coming down from the hill when they were dancing around a calf. 32. In spite of all this, they kept on sinning. In spite of his wonders, they did not believe. 33. So he ended their days in fertility and their years in terror. Okay. We've been fighting with God for over 200 and something years. That's how long we've been in our monstrosity. That's why we no longer have peace on earth. That's why we have pestilence here and there. Our crops have been affected within the last several years. Famine will be the next thing we face in our lifetime. So a pandemic is just the beginning. What's the resolution? Well, it's called fasting, prayer. Fasting and prayer in great numbers. But in order to do that, you got to actually believe. You got to believe in God. You got to trust in God without a doubt. But if you don't believe, it won't happen. And it's going to take a whole lot to make this generation a believing generation. And it's not going to be pretty. Thank you very much for joining us here at Spiritual Water. My name is Brenda Guerrero, and as always, may the peace of God be upon you. May the protection surround you, and may the will of God come from you. Until the next time, please enjoy this beautiful day. And don't forget, it is not Black Lives Matter. It is what? Every life matters to God. Black Lives Matter is the world's thing. Every life matter is a divine thing. God created every life, and there's not one life more precious to him than all of them. Thank you. Have a beautiful day. Join us again tomorrow for the rest of it.